And this is the handkerchief tree, which is the object of his first expedition to China, in which he was successful. This particular specimen is growing in the Birmingham Botanic Gardens, and it's a very, very good specimen, and one of the best I've seen. This was actually photographed in 1985, and as you can see very clearly, these beautiful bracts, which when the wind picks them up, it's just like butterflies fluttering the trees, or sometimes described as handkerchiefs. The Veatch firm, of course, were delighted with his efforts in China, and within a very short time they wanted to send him back. This time again they had one particular plant in mind. This time it was Meconopsis integrifolia, the yellow poppywort. The yellow poppywort does not grow well at all in England outside of a glass house. In fact, the only place I've ever seen it growing outdoors is at Edinburgh Botanic Gardens. I'm afraid it doesn't look very much in this black and white photograph, but apparently when it's growing in the wild it looks absolutely stunning. This is an interesting photograph. It's only a tiny little photograph, obviously taken with a small Kodak, and it's one of the few photographs where you can see Wilson actually being totally relaxed. And here is in the company, so the legend on the back of the photograph says, in the company of a Buddhist priest, a photograph taken in 1908, and you can see the hint of a smile on Wilson's face there. One of the things that Wilson always complained about was Chinese currency. As he moved about China, often moving from one province to another, he found that the money would not be accepted. Money that was issued in one province was no good at all in another province. In fact, the only universally accepted coin was the cash, which was of so low value. In 1900, I think it was worth about 1/50th of an old penny. An old English penny, which in those days had a value of 240 to a pound. So the coins themselves were worth very, very little. And Wilson was forced to actually carry chests of this cash money, because it was the only money that he would know for certain would actually be accepted as he moved from one province to another. There were silver coins available, but there were all arguments over the quality of the silver, so silver dollars were not very useful. Wilson always took dogs with him when he went to America, I think partly for company, and also for retrieving game. Wilson always took shotguns with him, not for personal protection. In fact, Wilson, in all his dealings in China, never had any problem in that regard. But it was obviously very useful for bringing down game in that and supplementing what must have been a pretty meagre diet. Wilson's only daughter was born in 1906 in Kew. And later on, Wilson would actually take his wife and his daughter with him on some of his travels, his later travels, particularly to Japan. This is one of Muriel Wilson, Muriel Primrose Wilson, as she was christened. Primrose because on the day she was born in 1906, one of Wilson's introductions flowered for the first time. Which the plant itself was named Primula wilsoni, and Muriel was named Muriel Primrose in honour of the plant. This is a curiosity. This is only a photocopy of an original card, and this is typical of Wilson. This is written in haste, obviously, from Japan to his wife, who was living in Kew, and there's nothing on it. There's a picture on one side which shows a view of somewhere in Japan. I think it's Yokohama. And all there is on the other side is the address. There's not a greeting of any sort. It's as if he hadn't got time for things like that. A curious thing.